Since time immemorial, man has sought and fought for answers to the great questions. Are we alone in the cosmos? Do we have some innate purpose? What are the top 100 greatest anime of all time? After 5 years of our planned anime nights getting waylaid by heated debates, we three friends vowed to set out in search of the ultimate truth. But it turns out spaceships are really expensive. So to raise funds, we're doing a podcast now, rewatching all our favorite anime and finally getting around to the classics we missed so we might one day forge the ultimate list.
I'm Tristan.
I'm Miles.
I'm Geoff, and this is our quest for the best.
That almost feels like we should be saying it in sync, but that would be terrible.
It would.
That would be very difficult to...
And I half expected at the end of that for you to go off script, Geoff, and then just make a really corny Pokemon reference and be like, I'm Geoff, that's right.
That would only work if you said Tristan Miles.
True. True. We would have needed to change that as well.
Miles.
Something for the inevitable Pokemon episode.
Yeah. We will have to write a Team Rocket version of this.
God.
Is there? I mean, I guess there is an inevitable Pokemon episode because Sun and Moon is in contention.
Is it?
More than
Probably
Indigo League?
not.
I mean, I could see Indigo League being in contention, but...
I mean, Indigo League is like important. Sun
Yes.
and Moon is a really, really good anime.
Okay.
Yeah, but we don't care about important for this. We're just doing this based off of our personal tastes. Like, that's the whole point. I think a lot of the top 100 lists that exist, or the top anything lists, really undermine themselves by saying, well, in the context of its time, which is a great thing to talk about, but when you're actually putting together the final list...
I mean, especially since we've talked about this before. Apologies to podcast viewers who don't have all of that background information. We've talked about this before, and there are plenty of things that normally people would say are deserving of being on a top 100 list. But this is our list, and some of it we just don't care about. So it's not going on there. I don't think that we're going to add certain things just because other people say they're really good. Even if we can like agree that they have historical importance.
Yeah. We will investigate them though. That's the point of this podcast.
Absolutely. We will investigate them. We will look at them. We will rewatch them. We will debate and determine and then say, nah, we good.
Because there are also plenty of like great anime that were important for their time and also still absolutely hold up.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Like Gundam, you know?
Be specific, Geoff.
There are a lot of anime that are important to animators or to anime creators. Again, may be very inspirational or valuable or necessary. They may be part of the anime canon, but we're not on a quest for the anime canon. We're on the quest for the best.
Yes, precisely.
100 shows
and movies
you should watch because they rip ass, regardless of context. Although, you know, to an extent, we'll want to talk about that classic context too. You know, we're not saying we're discounting the Astro Boy episode. We might just do Astro Boy 1980 though, or Astro Boy 2000,
or Pluto.
I mean, I'm far more likely to put Pluto on the list than I am Astro Boy.
We will just do Pluto because Pluto's probably going to be on the list. But we should watch some other Astro Boy just to fully contextualize.
I mean, for context, I could agree with that.
Like for me, a big reason I want to do this podcast is to have an excuse to watch good old anime instead of trash from the newest season.
Do you not get to do that in your day job, Geoff?
We have to watch so much trash because we are stupid, crazy people and say, hey, we're going to watch literally everything or at least a couple of episodes of everything.
Well, you two do. I
know. Feel good, Miles, that you only get to watch the cream of the crop, or the bad ones for you, or if popular opinion has said that this show is so good that you just need to watch it, even if you yourself don't enjoy it.
There was a time where I was watching 30 anime a season, not too long ago for work, and now for work I only have to watch, a dozen anime a season, and I don't have to watch all of them. I still like to.
That's good.
I like anime, but I can be a lot choosier than the both of you because my paycheck is only dependent on me knowing the important anime.
The best.
And I mean, I made the huge mistake of building my brand around roasting trash, which not actually a mistake. I enjoy what I do.
That's good.
But I want an excuse to watch the good shit on a regular basis and actually talk about it and hopefully have people listen.
And
Which is how our weekly calls started, which is what eventually led us to this podcast, because we just wanted to watch classic stuff like Wicked City, and it ballooned out of control.
Became Wicked Sunday.
Yes, we called it Wicked Sunday. It was our weekly calls where we tried to get through most of every anime film ever directed by Kawajiri. We did not do that.
And it took us 5 years to not do that.
Yeah, we side quested out and did a whole bunch of different things, from watching various Gundams, from watching Metabots, to watching what else did we watch? We spent a lot. Well, most of the time we just ended up shooting the shit,
which is how this idea basically came about too.
Exactly.
We started just trying to put together a list of our top 100 anime, just to have a list of our top 100 anime, see if we could do something with that, and then it just the task of that started spiraling out of control so fast. We were like, we got to watch some stuff to actually like make these decisions.
A lot of stuff.
And I'm glad that you could join us on our quest, but we've immediately got to get diverted from it because that's the format of the show
that we keep adjusting on the fly.
Today we'll be talking about Frieren, which is Tristan's pick for the week. So we'll be going around in a circle with every one of us bringing in...
Not just pick for the week.
Well, pick for the list.
A for the list, but also Frieren at this precise moment that I sit here, because I think that I'm potentially the person that changes it the most out of everyone here. I'm not entirely sure. It is my current favorite anime all time. Full stop.
And it's a very, very valid pick for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you do change yours
I do.
most often.
Probably the most. And I like it that way for a number of reasons, because it also means that my next favorite anime is still out there. I know too many people that are just like, no, my favorite anime is like Gunbuster. Nothing against Gunbuster, but it's like...
That's a pretty good choice, yeah.
Your favorite anime comes from before you're born. That must be so sad, because any anime coming after that will never be as good.
Well, I mean, there is always the possibility that we'll discover a new favorite anime that none of us have watched yet.
One of my goals is that not necessarily favorite. I'm not going to set my goal that high, but I hope that over the course of this podcast, whatever we right now have as like our top 10 anime of all time gets increased by at least one. One of us, or hopefully all of us, will have at least one new thing added to our top 10 of all time because of this podcast. And if that happens, I will be very happy. Very happy.
I think that's a good goal to shoot for. I hope I get at least a couple new ones in my top 10. Although, I don't know. For me, my top 10's always been like a little bit personal. Like all of my top 10 is super Geoff core stuff.
I mean, same.
You know
How dare you have your personal taste reflected in your top 10 favorite anime of all time? No, and that's the thing. Like, the both of you have normally really good taste, except for when it comes to your favorite Ghibli film. And so, like, it's really exciting to, like, watch through, because that was the first thing we did when we started putting together the list, was looking through everyone else's, like, top 10 or what have you. And so we're going to be starting with some of our absolute favorites for the first couple episodes, and then just kind of cycling around. But before we get into the Frieren topic, the main topic of today, we do have a question of the week. We have Chloe from New Jersey with a question. What's the anime that got you into anime?
So I want a clarification from you guys, specifically. Are we going to talk today about the anime that got us into anime, like when we were older, or are we specifically being like, here's the first anime I ever watched? Because those are two separate things.
It's the one that like made you be like, yes, anime is something that I want to be watching all the time over cartoons, over regular types of TV shows. Because if it was just the first anime we ever watched, it would be Dragon Ball, Pokemon, or Sailor Moon, right? Just given the time that we were all born. And that's, all valid, all very good anime to set you down that journey.
True.
Pokemon Actually, no, Sailor Moon would have been my first one. But I only half paid attention to the TV when it was on.
Sailor Moon was absolutely my first, and I fully paid attention. I had a Sailor Mercury doll. Not going to let you know how wonderful it is to be like a 5-year-old boy playing with the Sailor Mercury doll.
The peer pressure must have been rough.
Yeah, I lived with it. I didn't care. But as far as what anime got me into anime, that would almost certainly be probably Princess Mononoke.
Wow.
I'm trying to like nail down. That's the one that I go back to when it's like, that was when I realized that anime was its own separate thing. Because I'd seen anime before then, obviously, because I watched Pokemon, I watched Sailor Moon, I watched Card Captors. But that was the first time, like, when I was exiting elementary school and going into high school, that I was like, no, this anime is a separate thing. It is not just really good cartoons. Well, it is really good cartoons, but there's a reason why it's really good cartoons, and that's because it is anime. And then that was, watching that film for the first time was when I really kind of separated the two in my head for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
I mean, any Ghibli movie is going to be a life changer, but like Mononoke especially is absolutely peak.
It is.
Man, for me, there's kind of two answers, right? Because the one where I I would have been like 11, maybe 12, when Inuyasha came on Bionics. I mean, it was kind of the whole Bionics block. Like Inuyasha was like the one that really like grabbed me, and I was like, I got to be up every night to see this shit, you know.
And for our non-Canadian viewers, what is Bionics?
So Bionics was a segment on YTV, which is Canada's sort of like if Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network did the fusion dance.
kind of, yeah. It's the best we got.
So it was kind of like sort of Attitude Era Nickelodeon almost. It had sort of that like zany, like gross out, weird humor, but then it also got like a whole lot of anime. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this in the future, but it had an objectively better version of Toonami in The Zone.
It did.
Which was kind of the thing that like conditioned me to be into anime before like Inuyasha really like got
like the
my
only
brain
thing
on it.
The only thing I would say that Toonami did better than The Zone was that it had Toonami Tom.
Yeah, but I mean,
like nothing against like the great hosts of The Zone, like Sugar and Carlos, but Toonami Tom was also really great.
Yeah, no, he's iconic, and I mean, you know, Steve Bloom is just like
from Tom
one
2
of the greatest voice
beforehand, and
actors
also the fact that they even made movies, like the change of this is a completely separate thing. But anyway,
yeah, no, like Toonami had great content. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like The Zone had like a really great like the hosts talking to the kids and like, you know, it made you feel like you had buddies. But that's, you know, that
your first anime club.
Kind of, yeah, it was kind of your first anime club, and like. Yeah, the thing is, like, Inuyasha was where I knew I was, like, a fan of this stuff, that I was, like, super into it. But if I really think back, Pokemon was, like, what got me into it. But when I was, like, tuning in to Foxbox, to The Zone every afternoon, after Pokemon kind of drew me in, Digimon was, like, I got really, really, really obsessed with the storytelling in that. And I wasn't cognizant fully that it was like something different from cartoons. There was something really deep there with the characters and the adventure they were going on. And, you know, the emotional stakes of the finale of the first season, I mean, you know, the second season's a little, but the absolute insanity of Tamers, right? That was like
Tamers is absolute peak.
Tamers was definitely like my first good anime.
Tamers is getting an episode.
You know, Tamers is getting an episode for sure. It was kind of the osmosis of watching The Zone, because they'd also have Metabots on. You know, it was that whole like Pokemon wave, right? And like Metabots, I know gave me an early taste for that like crazy zany sakuga that I love in Trigger anime now.
Geoff, like you're talking about this, but there's two things. One is I do think that all of our anime journeys are more than a single anime, right?
Yeah.
We are the some of our parts we are also we've gone on a journey. So different things have been inflection points different ways. Like my answer is going to be like 5 different things because at each point in my life they did something different to bring me into the current trajectory of my life. Which is why I feel like you're omitting something really important here, which is Attack on Titan. Because all of this was just preamble to you becoming an adult, in which case you had to start your anime journey all over again. And we've talked about this, and Attack on Titan's like
I mean, it wasn't
the one
Attack
that
on
brought you
Titan
in.
that it wasn't Attack on
Was
Titan.
it not?
No, it was Fate Zero.
Oh.
But you only watched Fate Zero because you watched Attack on Titan.
I mean, I don't know when Crunchyroll got Attack on Titan.
July 2013.
July 20. Yeah, no, that was after I got back into because I was
because ReZero would have been 2012, assuming you
Fate
watched
Zero.
it when it aired.
Fate Zero. Yeah. No, Fate Zero was 2012. Like I was like, oh, Crunchyroll is a good deal now. When I was at Vancouver Film School for game design. Yeah, I should get back into watching some anime to give my brain a break from video games because like, video games kind of consumed the last 2 years of high school for me. And it was like what I wanted to do for a career. I was like, I need a separate hobby from that. So I hopped on Crunchyroll, started binging subtitled anime, and Fate Zero was like the first one that I was just like, I got to see every episode of this. And I think I started watching it free, actually. And then I was like, I need to not have ads on this, and I need to be able to see the latest episode right away, and I need to see it in HD. Yeah, Fate Zero was a really important one for me too.
Did you just go through the 2013 era value prop of Crunchyroll for us?
Yeah, I kind of did.
Crunchyroll.com/mothers-basement? Yeah. I don't think that works anymore.
No, it definitely doesn't. And it was /basement.
Okay, sorry.
I always insisted on it being /basement because, who's going to type all of those letters in?
I could have sworn it was Attack on Titan that brought you back in. I thought we've heard this story from
That's
you
what I
before.
thought too.
Yeah.
No, I mean...
Your timeline makes more sense this time around, but like, we have talked like Attack on Titan being like, you were of that generation of anime fans, kind of.
Kind of. I mean, like...
It's around that era.
Like, I did watch a lot of anime in high school. I just, like, got more into playing a lot of video games for the last 2 years.
Fair.
But, like, when I was in high school, I watched all of Ranma. I
wasn't saying you weren't a real fan before then. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that was a preamble. Because, like, for me, and I'll use that as a jumping off point, my background is extremely similar to the both of you, because we're all reasonably similar in age. Pokemon was, of course, the initial text, the text for me. Then moved on to Dragon Ball in a very big way, such that I continue to have encyclopedic knowledge of the franchise, especially those early eras. Not so much the...
So, wait.
the
When you say Dragon Ball, this is important.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Z, did you start in with Raditz murdering Goku? Spoilers, sorry. Or did you start in with Dragon Ball?
So, because I started with Toonami, that meant I started with the Frieza saga, technically. I think they went back to the Saiyan saga a little later.
Yeah, they did. That was my experience with Dragon Ball as well, was the whole Frieza saga.
Because for me, it was Raditz. And I still remember that first episode on YTV. And then him running across Snake Way like 50 times because they had those episodes and they just kept running them. We got them earlier because the Ocean Group did the first.
They did, yeah.
2 years earlier. Yeah. So there was an even earlier dub of Dragon Ball than the Ocean dub, but that didn't last for very long. And so then the Ocean dub hit in 1996. There were some places in America that got them earlier, but it wasn't until 1998 when Toonami got it that I finally got to watch it. And then it became my entire identity very, very quickly. But like, the thing is, Princess Mononoke was what made me an anime fan in the same way that Tristan did. because we found a PG-13 cartoon at Blockbuster and thought that was insane that such a thing could possibly exist, because I knew I liked cartoons, and it was PG-13, and I was probably 11, but I was able to rent it anyway, which was pretty crazy. My parents were very strict about that kind of thing when I was younger.
Well, because hopefully they just looked at it and saw a cartoon and didn't know, hey, by the way, in this film, the main character shoots a bow and some guy's arms fly off.
My dad watched it with us because we would rent it from Blockbuster religiously, my brother and I, starting from that point. I think we rented it 7 or 8 times from Blockbuster over the next year or so. Eventually, my dad watched it with us, was not happy that that's what, especially my little brother was watching, but it was too late by then. I remember having one day where I was sick from school and my brother was sick from school, and we just watched Princess Mononoke back to back 5 times because we knew we had to return it that night.
Wow. Good times.
Man, those were the days. The just wearing out the VCR as much as possible before you had to bring that back. Kids don't know what they're missing.
Be kind, rewind.
It was a very fun era, and it was a very pivotal moment because, again, animation can be like this. That was monumental. But then there are more pivot points, because then eventually I got into anime in a much bigger way. And I think really Mushishi was the first anime where I felt like it was my own. Like it felt like something that I had found rather than something that had been introduced to me.
Mushishi mentioned in episode 1. Yeah.
But then One Piece was another inflection point for me, because that was one that made me turn into fandom in a bigger way than I ever had before. I had been super resistant to watch One Piece because of the 4Kids era. So watching it, my friend forced me to watch it with her via Skype, which is like Discord children. So Skype was great. I watched it. We timed every episode to watch it together. For 120 episodes, she committed to watching with me. So
damn.
I was very grateful for her. She said, "You're going to love this. I know you're going to be resistant, but you're going to love it." And I did, in a way that I don't think she will ever fully understand. And that brought me into the fan space on my own rather than, being led by someone else. So basically your guys' story.
Yeah, it's sort of the same thing. Yeah. And yeah, I guess if I look back at high school and we're talking about stuff that the anime that's yours, the one that you seek out on your own, then that one for me would be Ranma. And that shit was incepted into my brain by the back of Pokemon comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me that would have been Slayers. That was the first one in and around high school anime club. Slayers Try is also the first DVD box set that I ever bought, which is back there, the green one on my shelf. There. First DVD set I ever bought was Slayers Try. But we watched a whole bunch of stuff in anime club at high school, because it was the era of, well, what does anybody have? Because we couldn't just go, hey, well, let's go do some streaming stuff, because this is early 2000s, so you can't stream anime like that.
My biology teacher torrented Reborn episodes for us.
Oh, nice.
Badass.
Nice.
Man, I mean, anime yeah, that's another point though. The anime club anime, because we were all in an anime club at some point, right? I ended up in local library anime club when I was, I think, 11. After I got into, when did Full Metal Alchemist?
2003.
2003. But when did it come to North America? Would have been 2000.
04, 05.
Late 03 or early 04.
It was pretty quick.
Okay, so I would have been 12 then. So yeah, still in elementary school when I was going to anime club. But the first anime that they showed us at anime club was Spiral, which not Uzumaki.
Do you know what's a banger? That ending. I still listen to the Spiral ending all the time.
You know what's not a banger? That opening. Nails on a goddamn chalkboard, the singer.
That show is also not very good, but...
It's not, but it is what our library had.
There you go.
But, through that, I got into FMA, which, FMA was a big one for me. And Red versus Blue, weirdly, was introduced to me on, the first night of anime club. That definitely had a big impact on the trajectory of my life too, you know?
I mean, I'm just imagining being in an anime club and watching Red versus Blue because it's not anime. So when they ask within the episode, why are we here? I would question, yeah, why are we here?
No, it was after Anime Club. One of the older guys, Derek.
Shout out to Derek.
Derek, very cool dude. But yeah, he pulled it up on the computer. Yeah, we all just watched Red versus Blue, and it was a really good time. So I guess Spiral's important to me too, in a very weird.
I feel so sorry for you.
Hey, we've all got those anime that we just watched because like a friend or somebody dragged us into it that like we were obligated to watch a significant amount of just kind of because.
Except I don't think
because of the social pressure.
I don't necessarily feel like I do, because there was a period of time for me during high school anime club where anything that was anime I would watch, and I would watch enthusiastically. It doesn't matter what it was. Like, watch me City Hunter, watch me Chobits, watch me Angelic Lair, watch me whatever.
You just named 3 bangers.
Oh, you were.
I know.
About to say you were forced to watch City Hunter. You poor baby. We watched in my anime club in high school Nero and Reborn, and it was great.
Yeah, we didn't watch.
Happy with that.
Like, I think the worst thing that we potentially watched in anime club, unless I'm like absolutely blanking on some utter trash that I have just blotted out of my mind, was probably Scried, and even then Scried's not
that's fine
terrible.
Scried's banging.
See?
I don't know what yeah, no, Scried's
in high school you thought that. It's fine now. It's
fine.
I'm not a hater, but like let's be real
like
here.
like Scried specifically takes me back to when I was a teenager. You know, mentally, it's just like
that's not that hard though, Geoff. Come on.
Yeah, that's not that hard at all. And actually, our side quest is very much related to that feeling of being back in high school.
And now it's time for this week's side quest, where we talk about all the things that are distracting us from finishing our main quest. This week, we're going to do a kill quest. So for side quest, we're going to do whatever we feel like for the week. A kill quest is where we look at something that is absolutely not making the list as of recording. Today's side quest, kill quest target is solo leveling.
And we're starting this off as the kill quest to really nail home what a kill quest is. Because as recording, solo leveling is one of the most popular anime
in the world.
It's literally the most popular anime on air.
Yes.
Right now.
By a significant margin.
Whether it'll still be on air by the time this episode goes out, we'll figure that out. But at the moment, it is super popular. So for us to come out and say, yeah, by the way, it's not making the list, we're setting the bar. And
how dare we? It's not even finished airing season 2.
No, it doesn't need to finish airing. Sometimes you don't need to finish airing before you make a determination on something.
I mean, the first season's already done, and like I enjoy solo leveling.
But I mean, you will have fans of solo leveling that will tell you that even at the end of season 2, it is only the prologue. But that all depends on how far in the original manhwa you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, it may only be the prologue, but I think we can all see where it's going. You know, in the broad strokes,
it's all there. It is not a complicated series.
And it's not like I'm sure that like Jin-Woo is going to go through some shit emotionally in the like the text of the script will say that he's going through some shit. But I am also equally sure that we're never going to see him actually like meaningfully lose anything he can't get back.
He will
in
not.
A fight.
I don't even think he'll have a proper Takumi Fujiwara moment, which is an initial D reference that a lot of people won't get. But he won't have a moment where he is not necessarily supposed to fail, but more of everything that he's been relying on, he suddenly realizes he's been relying on, and he needs to not do that anymore in order to get better. In Initial D's case, that was our main character, Takumi Fujiwara, who relied very heavily on his car to win races, and then the engine blew out of his car mid-race, and he lost.
Yeah.
Now, that's the only time in the history of Initial D he's ever lost anything. However, he had that moment.
And he was taught that lesson. And
Yes.
like, yeah. No, I think that you kind of need that texture to make a really great battle series in
And
general.
I mean, it is
and that's
possible that Solo Leveling could do that. I haven't read the manhwa, like I'm an anime only for this one, so I don't know the original material, and I'm sure somebody who has can tell me I'm an idiot or something. But like, I could see a plot line where the system goes against him, because the system is the one that's pretty much offering him everything.
I think the system's going to go against him. I think that like we will be told that is like a very bad thing that he's got to deal with.
We will be told.
Also,
I like how you're specifying that.
Yeah, but I also think that like minute to minute, it's never going to not let him be a cool badass. And if he does lose at any point, it's gonna be because of some bullshit.
Yeah.
And this is kind of
because he wins through bullshit, so you must lose through bullshit.
So Yu-Gi-Oh is really formative for me, right? Because like I loved Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
But Yu-Gi-Oh was also like the show where I was like, okay, so he's just never gonna lose. And the moment I was really like, he's never gonna lose, is when Kaiba beat him in Duelist Kingdom on top of the castle walls, where he had to like blackmail him into throwing the game because he's just that good. And that is kind of the Sung Jin-Woo situation in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, like, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of my favorite Saturday morning cartoons of all time. And Solo Leveling drags me back to Saturday morning cartoon Geoff.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It is so fun. It is one of the most effortlessly watchable and entertaining shows that I've seen in a couple years, right?
Miles could attest to that.
Oh God.
Yeah.
You both
Miles
told me to watch it.
Yes, you had to.
I'd watched one episode, right?
Yes.
I found out later I had watched two, and I just completely mind blanked it. But
very easy. The second episode is pretty forgettable.
Well, no, it was episode 8 for other reasons, but
okay.
don't get me started. The point being, y'all told me to watch it over the weekend.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I'll watch it like 2 or 3 episodes so I can feel like I have enough to talk about here and feel like, and I'd wanted to watch it anyway. I've been, reporting about it and talking about it with a lot of my clients, and it is very important to the anime scene right now. So I felt like I was, almost negligent for not having watched it anyway. So I'm like, oh, I'll just watch one more episode. Oh, I'll just next episode. Oh, and within 24 hours, I basically caught up to current. And then the next day I did. I could not stop watching it for that exact Saturday morning cartoon reason that you're describing, Geoff, because I was just enamored with the feeling of watching it. Now, to be clear, that's a very important distinction. I was enamored with the feeling of watching it, but you sit down and think about it for 2 seconds and it loses almost all of its magic, which is really a shame, because in the moment it feels so cool and fun and exciting and exhilarating. Yeah,
I would say that Solo Leveling reminds me very much of my feelings on like Marvel, in that Marvel are event films that are really great the first time you watch them. But then after that, the event is over and you're like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And I get that for Solo Leveling too. So like an episode could start, we watch it, it goes through, it's an amazing episode. It's got really great moments, tons of great action. And then you're like, do I want to watch that again?
But does it even have great moments? Because those moments are just, I guess, like they're pure adrenaline. They're candy. They're all sugar. There's no substance.
I enjoy candy.
So here's the thing, right? And this is the one thing that I'll like say is an excellent point in Solo Leveling's favor that I think puts it above most Marvel movies, most things like it, most of the Saturday morning cartoons that I grew up on, which is like, it's one thing to say that a piece of entertainment is good if you turn your brain off, right? It is another thing for a piece of entertainment to expertly and surgically turn your brain off for you. And that's what solo leveling does. And it keeps it off.
Yeah, because you don't need to actively turn it off yourself like so many other ones that you need to do. You need to be like, oh, I could pay attention to that, but I am choosing not to pay attention to these things. Solo leveling is just like, we're not even going to let you pay attention to it.
But what's the difference fundamentally between watching solo leveling and watching a slightly charismatic person play Elden Ring extremely well on Twitch? Like, there's not a meaningful difference between those two things.
I mean, well, no, because in watching somebody play Elden Ring well or watching a speedrunner, you are watching something with an actual possibility of failure.
I mean, I would also argue
behind it.
I would argue the difference between watching solo leveling and watching someone play Elden Ring is because of how solo leveling is set up, where they very much want you to like sort of put yourself in the place of our main character and feel that that badass just like through osmosis. If you do that for Elden Ring, there's always this little voice that's just like, you could go play Elden Ring. And then you're like, yeah, but I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing, obviously, Miles, you have not yet watched my problem with power fantasy anime.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you know what I'm going to say then.
I do.
Which is that it's more like playing Skyrim than Elden Ring. Everything is so meticulously level scaled to exactly what Sung Jin-Woo can handle. And it's like you see his health go into the red because it's scaled to make him go into the red, but it's also scaled so that if he just keeps throwing attacks at the thing, he's going to it's going to die while he's still got a sliver of health left, except for the fights where he's supposed to feel like a big strong man by raffle stomping something.
I mean,
it is those two modes of action over and over again.
The main difference that I would say between Elden Ring and Skyrim in this comparison to solo leveling is that when you're watching someone do Elden Ring, what I see is that you are watching someone who has already played and become really good at Elden Ring, then play Elden Ring. Like, I'm sure there are some people that can one-shot bosses in Elden Ring without ever having experienced them before. But a lot of Elden Ring and a lot of the Soulsborne games in general is get good through repetition, and seeing streamers, for example, go through and fail a lot is half of the experience with that, so that when they finally succeed, it feels like a monumental accomplishment. But we don't see that in solo leveling, which then leads me to believe that Skyrim is a slightly better comparison, because you can beat pretty much that whole game on first time through without like really failing.
Yeah, no, and it's set up to like put pressure on you without ever overtaxing you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would maybe the best point of comparison would be Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild has that like initial curve where you have very low health and you got to be scrappy to win, right?
I mean, Breath of the Wild is also one of those, the world is wide open and it doesn't necessarily scale to the point where you could go to the wrong dungeon in the wrong order and absolutely get messed up.
Or walk up to a Lionel before you're ready. And you
or
can
like
get
walk up to Ganon,
right?
Technically. You can just go straight to Ganon if you want. but
I mean, the thing is, I mean, Breath of the Wild actually does scale very, very subtly with the weapons. Because if you can kill one enemy, then you will get a weapon that is leveled to the area that you are currently in. And as long as you can keep using that, then you will be able to keep killing enemies around you and stay alive.
Just like Jin-Woo's shadow skill or shadow necromancy skill.
Yeah,
wow.
Pretty much exactly like that. Breath of the Wild, I think, is better than Skyrim at creating that sense of, oh, I'm in danger. I'm pushing into like unknown territory where I'm like really under threat from things that might kill me. And I think it's better than solo leveling at that, because you can actually get your shit rocked by a Lionel, right?
I mean, I think that's only because Breath of the Wild doesn't allow you to be a stealth archer in the same way of Skyrim.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the problem with solo leveling, right? Is that there is no danger. Textually in the show, it's very clear that the system is looking out to, like you said, keep him on exactly the edge of what he can do, so it feels just rewarding enough, unless he wants to like show off. And that makes it completely flaccid as a piece of media, not as a piece of entertainment necessarily, but that's why like it feels to me like the Elden Ring comparison is more about the feeling of watching it. Like someone who can go through Elden Ring and not like get hit once. I've seen that happen. It's really fun to watch and impressive. And solo leveling, fun to watch and impressive visually. It's just that's the entire depth of the show. And it's supposed to just make you feel like, oh, this is cool. But there's not a single point of characterization. There's like kind of characters that have designs that are made for like fan art, or characters that like have like half of a quirk so that you can feel like there's something to read into.
Most of them don't even have that. Like when we're talking about depth, that's where I normally get into like problems when it comes to solo leveling, because like what is really we're most of the way through 2 seasons now, and I can't really say what the main plot is. I know what the main plot is going to be because they've been foreshadowing it for almost all of season 2, but like beyond, okay, well, you got our main character and he's trying to get these items in order to heal his mother who's sick in the hospital. But beyond that, you know, that is what he is doing, and you know how he's doing it because he's being a badass. But that's kind of the limit of his character. And like any other character that he interacts with, you can basically describe in a sentence.
Can you describe his sister in a sentence? One of the main characters?
He's his sister, who occasionally notices that he's on television when a friend points it out and be like, oh, hey, he's on TV now. Like,
his sister is working hard at school in order to secure a better career that doesn't involve putting her life in danger in a dungeon. And she wants to support her brother, and her brother supports her.
I never got that.
I mean, the thing is,
because half the reason why he's even in his situation is because he is heavily trying to support her.
But they want to support each other. They're like,
do they have that kind of relationship? Have we seen that chemistry on screen?
a little bit.
Oh yeah, she made him sandos one time. Oh, she made him little sandwiches and left them out.
That one time, yeah.
But I mean, it's very basic intentionally, right?
I know, but it feels very much hey, they're brother and sister. So there is a lot of assumed relationship through the fact that they're siblings, rather than what we were actually shown.
I literally have no reason to cheer for Jin-Woo at this point.
That's the shortcut, though, right?
But that's all that the majority of these characters are a bunch of shortcuts.
So yes, they are shortcuts, right? But like, the thing is, Sung Jin-Woo follows the shortcut of he really cares about his family. His mom's in the hospital. He's got to take care of her, and he's got to take care of his little sister. And these are like relatable struggles for him to deal with that a lot of people can like extract and apply to their own lives in very basic ways. And I'm not saying that that's like great writing, but what I will say is that if you compare that to 99% of guy in a, isekai, or I was reincarnated, or I got kicked out of my party because they think my skill sucks, but it's actually fucking awesome.
It's better than that.
That guy's just a blank slate, right? That guy is just designed to be like pants that any nerd can put on that will like make like one or two references that, maybe will slightly personalize that for some nerds. But like fundamentally, the character is just pants. And Sung Jin-Woo is, the outline of like a hardworking, sort of earnest guy. He's like a little bit of a bitch at first, but he's scrappy and he works hard. And then as his personality is drained away and he becomes like more stoic and badass, there is sort of an arc there because you're concerned of, is he losing his humanity? And it's not deep by any stretch of the imagination, but it is like
it is present.
Arc. And the other thing that I will say for solo leveling is that while the supporting characters are all flat, they are all kind of interesting and they all kind of reflect things about Sung Jin-Woo that, a lot of the time it's just making him look like more of a badass, like his healer friend who's like much higher level than him, but can't really hack it in the dungeon. And there's like that contrast of like, okay, so you're like middle of the road as opposed to like the very bottom of the road in terms of power level. And the stress of all this danger takes so much out of you that you eventually quit. Again, not the deepest character arc in the world, but it's like creating a point of reference So you're like, okay, I understand why Sung Jin-Woo is a badass, and I understand some of the like emotional effort that he is putting into intellectually, and it's a little bit shown and not just told, but it's mostly told, right?
It
or
is
you know, there's the guy who's got all the good gear from his dad. Unlike all the other people who just have kind of good gear and are just lucky, he recognizes that he's just lucky, and he's also like, okay, you know, I respect that this Sung Jin-Woo guy is cool. I'm gonna try to befriend him for personal reasons, or for like, you know, for like to get up in the business world, but also because I think he's a cool guy and I want to be friends with him. And it's like, again, none of it's super deep, but if I think back to a lot of the stuff that I don't like about Sword Art Online, for example, there is more narrative participation here from different characters who do more than carry a football for one episode and then just go into the peanut gallery.
What about Asuna?
Asuna is the one exception, but there's also Che, whatever her face, I also think it is a big point in Solo Leveling's favor that it doesn't just give him a wife right away, and the wife has now shown up. But Asuna is like the one other character in.
But the thing is, like, a good critical rating of Sword Art Online is that Asuna is the real main character, and Kirito is not actually positioned very well thematically or like literarily to be a good main character, which is why when the story was rewritten, Asuna became the main character.
Asuna's the main character, and Progressive is a much better story. And you know, like,
but I mean, I would still feel like Sword Art has a better secondary cast by far than Solo Leveling.
Like, Klein is more entertaining and interesting than any character in Solo Leveling.
Klein, yes.
Klein. Well, Klein is useless. Klein is like not really a meaningful character in Sword Art Online. He is just the peanut gallery, but he's
the entertaining comedy relief guy. Or it's very hard to think of any personality or like accomplishments that really set Silica and Lisbeth apart, for example.
No, but they have an episode at least, which is more than we can say for anyone in Solo Leveling.
That's not true.
And I mean, throughout all of like season 2 of Sao, I would put Shino above pretty much every secondary character in Solo Leveling as well.
Yeah, no, Sword Art Online eventually develops into having like an arc character who kind of carries the story because Kirito can't do it, who is the main character of that arc.
Anytime that Kirito is in the spotlight, the story of Sao suffers.
And I would also say Kirito has a lot less personality than Sung Jin-Woo.
About the same. Come on, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
we're talking a lot about Sao because I think it's actually more interesting to talk about Sao than just to talk about Solo Leveling. Because again, I will recommend Solo Leveling to a lot of people over the next few years.
Yep.
I really have a fun time watching Solo Leveling. I think everyone else who watches Solo Leveling has a fun time watching Solo Leveling. And it is beautiful and it is really well put together. And I'm having fun. But with even Sword Art Online, even just those first 13 episodes, there's more world building, there's more charm points, there's more to emotionally grab onto than the 20 whatever episodes of Solo Leveling I've already seen. And then I look at like the episode where he slight spoiler warning, fights the demon prince or whatever,
the orc,
giant orc, or the sword guy,
the orc prince, orc king, the demon orc thing, Like, that episode is considered like the peak of peak. That's the episode that made Crunchyroll go down. It's like one of the top rated episodes of any TV show on IMDb, right? Like, it's when I got through that episode, I didn't realize that was the episode everyone was talking about. I still thought I had the big episode to get to because it was cool. Like, I was on the Stairmaster and I was, turned up the speed a bit for that episode. Like, I was feeling it. It was great. But there's just nothing to like latch on to emotionally.
I guess I can see what you like. SAO definitely has more narrative texture in the types of stories that are told in that first season, especially.
But also, like, from an emotional sense, there's no emotional attachment. Because, like, there are many characters in SAO and a lot of anime that, like, if something happens to them, you really feel it when you're watching it. I don't really feel like there's any character in Solo Leveling that I would feel that towards. Because even if Sung Jin-Woo gets beat up, I'm going to be sitting there being like, all right, yeah, and then now he's going to turn it around. I'm not worried about him. There's
one exception. If he loses the Red Knight shadow for whatever reason, I'm going to be really mad.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't currently see a way that that's going to happen, because even if they die, he just resummons it. So there would need to be some narrative thing that pulls that skill out of him, essentially.
Which is possible. That'd be a pretty good, like, moment, I think.
Yeah.
For the show.
I don't think I have an emotional attachment in either case to, like, if most characters, except Klein, if Klein were to disappear from Sword Art, that would make me sad. You know, like, I enjoy Klein's antics. In most cases, I feel like Sword Art has a very rigid structure of, like, this character is in the spotlight and then they're out of it, and that'll be for either an episode or it'll be for the whole arc. But, like, and Kirito helps them solve their problems.
Is that not at least a baseline we can ask for, though? I'm sorry, like, that is that's a big deal.
I think that's good structure. But I think that, like, what I like about Solo Leveling over that is that the characters that it has feel like moving pieces, and they're not making major plays because, you know, obviously Sung Jin-Woo is going to carry a lot of stuff. But there's, like, dudes with schemes at multiple different companies that are, like, going on episode to episode, and it's breadcrumbing plot points and character developments a lot more effectively, I think, than SAO does. Whereas SAO has, like, interesting stories episode to episode, right? But I really don't feel that a lot carries on from the most that carries on through those first 13 episodes is his relationship with Asuna and his gear.
Okay, but let me sum this up then.
Yeah.
Mother's Basement says this Solo Leveling is marginally better than Sword Art Online.
Yes. And that's not high praise. Yeah, that's
right?
not.
So that's the point. Like, I really enjoy Sal, but, like, the fact that there's this much of a quibble about the levels, like, this is just this generation Sal from an anime perspective, right? It's obviously multitudes bigger. Anime was, like, at its lowest point in the West during that era that Sal came out, 2011. But it still managed to rise above it. But, like, Solo Leveling, I can show it to almost any relative of mine and not feel too weird about it, which is another benefit of that. Like, it doesn't have a lot of the baggage that a lot of Western audiences put onto anime, rightly or wrongly.
It doesn't have anime bullshit. It is super light on anime bullshit.
Certain kinds of anime nonsense.
No, I mean, it's got lots of anime nonsense, but it has very little anime bullshit. You know, like, his sister is just his sister that he's taking care of.
We don't need to go deeper than that.
I was really happy when they showed separate bedrooms and also twin-size beds for both of them. That was such a big relief for me.
And, like, the fact that it's her friend who has a crush on him,
and not
so
her.
Refreshing.
Yeah. So all that to say, Kill Quest for Solo Leveling, not on the list.
Not on the list.
Not on the list.
Any chance?
What?
Are you going to reappraise this in a year?
I mean, there is a level of recency bias, but I don't think so.
I think we would have to be disappointed by, like, several hundred anime, and then it might end up in the top 90.
And I mean,
or in the bottom 90.
That would need to happen, but then also the final episodes of this season, and then potentially another season on top of that, would just have to be so much marginally better from, like, a narrative depth standpoint. Like, to account for most of the problems that we have for it, it's got a lot of work to do, and I don't see it doing that. Well, A, because the story is already written, so it's already set in stone whether or not it's doing that. But yeah.
So I think for me, what would have to happen for it to really qualify is like, one, Sung Jin-Woo would have to like lose something significant, right? Like I couldn't use this example in my problem with Power Fantasy video because I wanted to use anime examples. But in the Cradle series, which has like a very similar like rhythm of the main character starting weak, getting really strong, struggling through some fights. There are fights that he goes into that he absolutely can't win, and one of them he loses his arm. And like ultimately that transitions into some upsides, right? But like there is an adjustment period and there's like a meaningful consequence for losing. And I think that like bare minimum, we would need to see Sung Jin-Woo come up against a challenge that he can't handle and lose something he can't get back and have to like change something for me to consider it even top 100, or I mean, I guess maybe it's probably like top 100 action anime, you know, but like top 20 action anime for me.
But even that I don't think would be enough. And also, like I said earlier, I still have not had a moment to care about Jin-Woo as a character, person, anything. Like, I just don't. And if I can't care about the main character, and also there's no other characters that even exist within this world, like, I just don't think that you can even change it up.
Yeah, I mean, they're rolling out his Asuna now, so you might care about him as much as you care about Kirito by the end of it. Yeah, like that would, what I just said would all be the minimum for me to even consider it, right? And then, so that's what, that would be my criteria.
And will it hit that? Who knows? But that is it for our side quest.
So Tristan, this is your favorite anime of all time currently.
Yes. So what we decided to do is for the first couple of episodes, we were each going to go and we were going to do round table and we were going to pick an anime that we know we would put on the list no matter what. And that we're fairly certain that the other two would agree that it belongs on the list. Just like reasonably agree. So in my case, that is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Now, I have a little bit of an edited synopsis that we took and I have molded into my own words, as you do, to roughly set the scene of what Frieren is about, just in case you don't know. We're not going to assume that anyone has watched the best anime of the last year, and in my case, forever. So here we go. Frieren takes place in a fantasy world, and after a decade-long quest in order to defeat the Demon King, the members of the hero's party have returned home after a successful adventure, having become lifelong friends. However, the decade in which our heroes have spent defeating the Demon King is, to the elf Frieren, only a fraction of her very long life, a life that has lasted over 1,000 years. So when the hero's party disbands after their victory, Frieren casually returns to her routine of traveling by herself and collecting spells across the great continent, and several decades pass. Eventually, Frieren begins to realize how her days in the hero's party has affected her, but she does this only after witnessing the deaths of two of her former companions, as they are human and she is an elf. Because of this change, she sets off on another journey, one that mirrors the path taken by the party of heroes way back in the day, and one that will hopefully end where the souls of her former party members lay. That is the rough synopses, and really that only covers like maybe half of episode 1, because episode 1 does the thing of we're going to go double lengthed just to really get this out there. And that also I think only covers like half of the main story of Frieren, because half of it we do witness the journey of the heroes party between the four main members of the heroes party when they went to defeat the Demon King, but then we also see the second journey Frieren's party between her, Fern, Stark, and whoever happens to join her at the same time. And they are doing a separate thing of where they're trying to basically follow the path of, but for different reasons. And then they have different things that they run into, different people that they meet. Sometimes the same person, just, they're like 80 years older now, and that means something. And trying to succinctly say why this is my favorite anime is very hard because there are too many. There are far too many reasons why. Like, even removing the story aspect, which is absolutely phenomenal for me. Removing the characters who I love all of them. Like, the animation is absolutely great because Madhouse is pretty peak almost always. The music's phenomenal. Like, I love this show so much.
Yeah.
But then from the narrative aspect, so like we said that Solo Leveling ain't going to be on the list, and a lot of my reasons for that is attachment to the characters. I love all of these characters so much, and I love them because they are more than cookie cutters of what they could be. So Frieren, her main thing is that she is an elf. She has lived for over 1,000 years, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that the age of an elf actually matters from, I want to say a normal standpoint, because the only other things that pop into my head is when you have those arguments of, oh, she looks like she's 8 years old, but she's actually 2,000 years old. And I'm like, I don't like any
Not
of those.
as a justification for something that the anime is trying to get away
like
with.
Normally the ages are justifications for things, but like in Frieren's case, I think it does an extremely good job of showing, hey, no, this is actually a character, a being that has lived for all of these years. And then also to show there are some interesting narrative problems with that, or maybe not problems, but conflicts with that are go ahead.
So I will quibble just very so slightly.
Sure.
What we see in very long-lived characters is wisdom. That is usually the one trait you get, right?
Yes.
Like, wise for their years, but not really because they're 400 years old. That's the one thing we can see in other fiction, whether it's, the Lord of the Rings.
Galadriel, Legolas, too. I mean...
Well, not Legolas. More Aragorn, really, because he's like 80 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Legolas and Aragorn are kind of like the one kind of flip of that. But, Galadriel, Gandalf,
even
etc.
Gandalf and Saruman,
like everybody who's over 1,000 in the Lord of the Rings.
They're still petty. They're all
Tom
still
Bombadil?
very petty. They're all still... Well, Tom Bombadil is an exception that proves the rule, to be honest about. Like, Tom Bombadil is closer to Frieren than Elrond in terms of how he looks at the world. But, like, literally in so much fiction, you see the authors trying to show what an elf or a long-lived character would be like, and that is the wisdom is the only trait that they can actually nail. Everything else feels like, oh, this character otherwise would just be like 50 years old or whatever, or even 20 years old.
And I think like Frieren actually has like a really interesting approach to that, where there's kind of only one elf who shows like real wisdom.
We met 3 of them, but that's getting into the spoiler section a bit.
So we're right now talking about the show. If you have not seen it, you're going to be fine
until we say that it's not fine anymore. And we need to get to that point.
So right now we're covering everything through the first mini arc.
Yeah.
With Stark.
The first couple of arcs, at least up to like Stark. Stark's not a spoiler. I don't care. Stark's fine.
That is kind of the introduction to the story, right? The putting together of the initial party.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I also don't. I mean, I guess there are spoilable details in Frieren for sure, but like,
well, a lot of it is episodic up until that point, which I love.
Yeah,
I love episodics because it just allows you to delve into things a little bit more and a little bit better. I don't like the fact that a lot of narratives nowadays try to avoid that, because I feel like solo episodes get unfairly labeled as filler sometimes. Obviously in Frieren it's not, because they all have manga equivalents, and usually filler in the anime traditional sense is like anime only storylines that have been brought in to fill time.
That's gone out the window now. You got to understand that in like the modern parlance, Tales from Ba Sing Se is filler. Which is literally on the Avatar.
Blows
filler.
my mind, honestly. It should not be.
I think the person who put that on there should be put down. Like,
yeah. But but that is kind of the thing of where a lot of times if you have an episode that does not progress the main plot TM, that it is filler and not necessary. But in Frieren's case, I nothing is filler. Well, I would not say that there are episodes of Frieren that are quote unquote skippable, because all of them are important, if not to the overall main story, then to the sub-stories of like Frieren's development and her relationship with Himmel, to Fern's development. I think a really important thing to like that makes Frieren so good is that it's not really a plot-driven show at all. It's character-driven, right? There is like a goal that matters to the characters that doesn't really will almost certainly end up mattering to the balance of the world in the long term, right? But really, like, Frieren is trying to get to the, is trying to retrace the steps of her journey to like reconnect with the memories and really understand who these friends who she's lost were as people. And like the end goal of that, the end of the world where you can meet the souls of those who've gone, is kind of like really a metaphorical summation of where that journey has already started to take her, of reconnecting with like all of these people and places that Himmel touched along the way, and like considering how he changed her and like living in those memories, right? So that's all a very personal motivation. Mm-hmm. And then Fern is going with her because Fern, doesn't really... Frieren's her only family that she has left. At this point, yes.
Fern is trying to discover her own place in the world. And Stark just kind of needs to go out and grow and challenge something. And it's really Frieren's personal motivation dragging both of them along, and them
they'd have no reason to keep going,
but they also want to connect to their parental figures, who Stark is estranged from Eisen to a certain extent because of how they split up, but also like they're both just kind of stubborn jackasses, and they both know that eventually they'll get to talking to each other again. And then Fern really wants, she feels like she owes Heiter so much, and she really wants to like live up to that, but also connect with who he was. And there's like that emotional journey of these people who were important to them, who are now separate from them for whatever reason. And
that's why I feel like the dual narratives work really well, because you have the original story of the original hero's party, but every member of the hero's party kind of has an equivalent, or at least a relationship with somebody in the secondary party, in Frieren's party. Because Frieren will connect to Himmel, Fern will connect to Heiter, Stark will connect to Eisen. Nobody really connects to Frieren because she is herself in both parties, but that comparison works really well because it doesn't rely on just the one relationship every time. Like Frieren's relationship with Himmel is very important and probably one of the more important ones of the group, but you can have episodes and plot lines dedicated to Fern and Heiter, and that's perfectly fine. You don't need to rest the entire narrative on top of Frieren and Himmel.
And Himmel would have really liked that analysis. but I think you were hitting on something I really wanted to talk about, which is that 10-year period where they did the original hero's journey, 70, 80 years ago or whatever. That was so important to everyone. And there's a point pretty early on in the show where they're talking about how it's kind of weird and almost a little suffocating to have those 10 years be the best years of your life, like that perfect moment. And all of the members of Frieren's party are trying to recapture that, and that's like a subplot of a subplot of a subplot, but it comes through in every episode of those analogies you just made, Tristan, they're looking to try and find what that missing piece that they feel inside them from that. Like Heiter feels like he lost part of himself on that journey, and Fern's looking for it. Eisen feels like that was the best time of his life, and
Stark wants to experience that.
And I mean, I think it becomes more pronounced, like Frieren's immortality makes that idea of a 10-year period of your life being the most important and meaningful and best period of your entire life all the more poignant. Because, when you live 80 years, that really hits hard. That's still like a very small portion of your life. But for Frieren, it's this blip that changed everything and defines everything about her. And she didn't really realize how important it was until she had a relative amount of distance in her life to how long it was after that Heiter started being like, well, damn, that I'm going to completely change as a person and actually throw my all into this priest thing. And, Eisen was like, maybe I should, I actually, they don't really develop that much about what Eisen did between the party splitting up and him adopting Stark. But
him adopting Stark was a big moment for him because
it was a big moment for him.
Yeah.
But also, I suppose, in relative time, he does live pretty damn long too.
He also lives fairly long. There's a lot of, I feel like maybe that's something that they might dig in a bit more, would be the relationship between Frieren and Eisen, because they are the two long-lived characters. They still mention that Eisen is very old and he will probably die soon-ish. He'll live longer than the humans, and he has lived longer than the humans of the heroes party, but he's also not going to live anywhere near as long as Frieren will.
I mean, you kind of get a glimpse at where he's going with that, the old dwarf who's protecting his wife's village.
Yeah. Great episode, by the way. My God, I love that episode.
Do you know what's crazy about this show?
What is crazy about the show?
There's no bad episodes.
No,
so
there ain't.
I was rewatching a couple episodes just to get back in the Frieren mood, because it had been since it first aired that I had seen it, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't stop myself. Again, I've just watched a lot of anime in the last week because I was getting ready to talk to y'all about it.
I mean, they're not bad at all. They're actually peak. So when I did my video on Frieren at the end of 2023, after we had the first block of episodes, and I already said that it was my favorite anime of all time at that point, there was still more Frieren to be watched. So the whole Mage Academy arc, or the Mage Exam arc, that hadn't come out yet. And I said before watching that arc that the pacing of the show is absolutely perfect. I will say that it felt a little bit more dragged by comparison when you hit the Mage Exam, because that fills up the entire second half. We spend so much more time with that arc, that period of time, than we do with anything else before it. That,
I mean,
the pacing feels different.
I want to talk about that separate from the episodic stuff, because I feel like that's a different mode.
Well, because that's when we stop being episodic.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of when Frieren becomes a straight up shonen battle anime for a bit, and it's really good at it. But
so since we're on the borderline of that, if you haven't watched Frieren, this is the spoiler boundary.
Yeah,
spoilers be beyond this point. Because if we don't say that, we're gonna end up just going off onto it and do it anyway.
I do want to get back a little bit to the start of the journey, because I think that the start of the journey is really, really well done, and I want to talk about Stark and Fern's development. But yeah, you gotta talk about where they're going to be able to talk about the start. If we're talking about bad episodes, I don't think there are any bad episodes.
Okay.
What would you say is the weakest if you put a gun to your head? For me, it would be the one where they clean up the beach.
No.
Heck?
Okay, so the reason why that's actually one of my favorite episodes. This is what
every episode is one of your favorite episodes, Tristan. That's why this is such a good anime.
I know they're all my favorite episodes, but the reason why this one specifically is because I feel like that episode is the first time where the narrative really tries to hammer you over the head with just how little Frieren cares about the passage of time. Because to her, we're just going to clean up the beach. Why? What's it matter? It's not that big of a deal. But for Fern, it's no, this is 6 months or however many months it was. This is a long time that we're spending cleaning up this beach. And for Fern, who has a limited, small human lifespan by comparison, that's a big deal. And she needs to be like, oh, wait, no, if I just let Frieren be Frieren, we're not getting anywhere. We're going to side quest all the time. And this is just going to be her life of cleaning up the beach. And she doesn't want that.
Like, I agree. I think it's a great character development episode for Frieren and Fern and for establishing their sort of relationship. I just feel like in terms of like all of the episodes.
I mean, if you really want me to put gun to my head, what is the worst episode? And again, they're all great. They are all great. They are all great episodes. I would probably say the episode with Kraft.
With Kraft?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Shocking to me. Because that one's so philosophically rich.
I would say, because here's the thing. I would say the story of Kraft, like him as a character and what he means to the overall story so far, becomes far more clear in later episodes than it does in this specific episode.
For me, that was going to be my least favorite episode because it's a transitional episode.
Yeah.
That feels like a transitional episode. And the Kraft moment feels even small within that episode in terms of like resonance, because I feel like it's a good episode. Don't get me wrong. There's no bad episodes of Frieren.
No.
But everything you hear from Kraft about like even like I don't think that the context of here's an even older elf who like has even like more oblique and like 3 steps back giga brain thoughts about the
and we're not even
religion.
sure if Kraft is older than Frieren. Because they don't really talk about that necessarily.
No, he is.
Like it's kind of hinted that he is.
No,
he says he is.
He is. And we know that he is because he's like he is we're in spoilers now. He's a hero from before
the heroes party, like longer before.
Yeah, from before the heroes party, from so far back into time that it stretches into the reign of the elves, right? Might even be pre-Demon King era. It's not entirely clear when he went on his journey.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, though, because Frieren's life, like the only way that I could fully be comfortable with saying that Kraft is older than Frieren is if the narrative shows us that he predates Frem.
Flame.
Or yes.
Yeah.
I've watched the show in both dub and sub, and I believe they pronounce her name differently, and it just gets in my head, and I can't.
I've only watched it in the sub because I'm not a huge fan of the dub, if I'm being honest.
I actually don't mind the dub. I like it a lot. I mean, I still prefer the sub, but like the performances of the main characters, like I went into the dub thinking I was going to hate however they both cast and then portrayed Frieren as a character, but I think the dub did a very good job.
No, I think the core cast is good. I think just some of the supporting characters kind of take me out of it from time to time.
I think Himmel's better in the dub.
That's actually a
I
very
really
fair
like
take.
Himmel's dub voice, but I only watched like 2 episodes.
I love the fact that Himmel in both sub and dub is voiced by the respective voice actors that did Bakugo from Hiroaka.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely see what you mean with the Winter Cabin episode. I think that's the slowest. But I've got a big passion for bottle episodes. I think that those can be really interesting.
Again, to reiterate, no bad episode in Frieren. But like if you do the whole put a gun to my head sort of thing, that would be the one.
To me, the reason that the beach episode doesn't like hit is because like, you know, it is an important piece of development for Frieren and Fern, and you do need an episode of them doing some stuff together before Stark enters the party to establish that dynamic.
I would literally kill for 20 more episodes of just Frieren and Fern. Like that would be the greatest thing in the world to me. And I love Stark. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a wonderful character. I think he makes the show better. I think he makes the party better. I think the dynamic is meaningfully better once they're all together. But I would kill for more of that, even though I know that it's useless. But basically, you know, in other anime, when you see like the montage of all the episodes you wish you were getting instead of the episode you got,
yeah,
like that's what the beach episode feels like to me. Of like, oh, I get the montage episode instead of it just being condensed to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like same with the like episode before or after it, the mushroom picking episode, like
the flower episode.
Or sorry, the flower episode. I knew I was like, it's not mushrooms.
Yeah.
The flower episode, like, it's a similar situation where, like, that's the kind of thing where I feel like in a lesser series, it would be, you know, a 2-minute segment or something, or just alluded to. And I
or
love
a flashback or something.
Yeah, or a flashback.
I like the flower episode a lot more.
Me too.
You know, that one. And you know, I'm just like, to me, I guess I'm trying to pick apart like less which one's bad and more which one feels redundant to elements that you see in other episodes. And like to me, if
maybe there's just a level of disappointment I had with Craft's episode, because I also thought maybe it's because it's something that I wanted that we didn't get until later. And like what I kind of wanted was, by the time we get to that episode with Craft, I am so in love with just the idea of Frieren that when Craft shows up, I'm like, oh my God, an elf meeting another elf. What is that dynamic like? And they barely interact. It's like, oh yeah, you're there. Cool. And I'm like, but this should be like a big moment. And Frieren just does not give a shit. And I love it.
To me, that adds so much texture, I think, to the world. And
it does. Like, but I feel like this, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm more so trying to explain that like I had certain expectations that weren't met. And I'm not saying that it was good for me to have those expectations. But if I am to talk about like any disappointment that I have, that was one of them. Now it gets a lot better later, because then Frieren's relationship and interactions with Siri are exactly what I wanted there.
Yeah.
So it does come in later. But
actually, that's a good argument against the Craft episode again, because if it had taken place at the very end of the show instead of at the midway point, it would have changed nothing. Frieren's like Frieren and Fern and Craft, like no one grows from that experience in that moment, and so that's why it feels very not skippable, because I still love it. Like again, there's no bad.
There's no bad episode in Frieren. Yeah.
But like, it doesn't feel like it's necessary to be at that point, and it doesn't feel like that contributes to the growth. And I have seen the criticism that like, oh, Frieren doesn't grow as a character, or all of her character development's done in episode 1. Like, you are so full of garbage. You are so
no.
I see it all the time.
Untrue.
Right? Like, and the thing is, on its surface, there are plenty of things about Frieren that seem like they're just, you know, surface level, like, oh, heavy reliance on flashbacks. That's bad writing. Heavy reliance, like the stoic main character. No, like literally, they do it with class. They do it with conviction. They do it with the 2 C's you need to make anything work. And it doesn't lean on tropes. It doesn't lean on even archetypes all that much.
And I mean,
so like,
there is a level of, I don't know if biology is the thing that I want to say here, but like, I feel like we, as humans, us, the viewers, would have a very hard time trying to like really comprehend what living that long would be like. And one of the ways that I feel like that is when it comes to how memory works and how like our brains compartmentalize things or summarize things or just plain forget things. And like when you are a writer and you're trying to apply that to a long-lived character, it comes down to, do they forget things? What do they remember? How do they remember things? And how does that shape them as a being? And I feel like sometimes that is not something that is dealt with at all.
I think that dynamic is what makes the old Dwarf Guard episode so great.
Yes.
The discussion on memory. But I think
that was the episode, by the way. That old dwarf episode, that's when I was like, this is now overtaken literally everything else I have ever watched.
As your favorite anime of all time? That's super valid.
Like it was already like within top 5 before then. Like episode 1 made it in top 5. That episode made it 1.
Just to bring it back to the cabin episode.
Yes.
To me, I think the fact that is an episode where like the characters don't move is
they're stuck in a cabin.
No, but I mean where their arcs aren't progressed and where they like are met with new stimuli and it sort of fixes them in their place is an important thing to have in a story. Right? It makes the characters feel more dynamic on the whole to have that moment of staticness, right? Where Frieren is confronted with this like religious elf with this perspective on the goddess that she's like largely rejected because of her life experience. And, he's like, here's this thing. And she like considers it, and then she moves on. And like there's a seed at the back of her mind for, contemplating these issues moving forward. But for now, she's like,
yeah, because that can very easily tie in with her relationship with Heiter and his relationship with the goddess, and so on and so forth. It's like the small little seeds, as you said, that could turn into something.
That could turn into something, but also don't necessarily have to, right? Like she's got, I think, a very interesting perspective on religion, where she's like, okay, well, I see how this is useful to people. And then like seeing an elf who also finds that use in it is like a interesting turning point for her, right? Because up until that point, it was kind of like, well, humans are going to die, right? So obviously they need something to cling on to like...
Yeah, like I feel like prior to that, she probably viewed religion very similar to how she viewed a lot of other organizations. So like when eventually we get to the mage exam arc and they're like, hey, do you have any qualifications? And she's like, I don't know. They change things like every couple of decades. I don't bother keeping up with it. And I'm wondering if she kind of viewed religion in the same way, is that religion changes with the society and things throughout the ages so much that she doesn't really bother to keep up with it or to pay attention to it too much.
I mean,
I feel like this is a place of where she's kind of lying to herself a little bit.
Could be.
Frieren loves to do this, loves to lie to herself, because she's shown to be plenty, I wouldn't necessarily say religious, but spiritual, and she's shown to be quite reverent.
I need to shout out one of the best moments of her character at all in because you're saying that like she lies to herself constantly, and I agree in that she lies to herself thinking, nah, this chest isn't a mimic.
This one's got a grimoire in it.
This one's got a grimoire in it. And it's like, yeah, she lies to herself constantly.
No, that's where Frieren has faith. She's got faith that one of these days, one of those chests is going to have a rare fucking grimoire and not be a mimic. And
I'm actually looking forward to that.
It will be a peak moment for sure when that happens. But I think the really interesting thing about her sort of perspective is like she is spiritual and she is reverent, as you said, but like she's also got such a long view on the development of human civilization, like the shifting of religion, and like she's met so many figures who have gone on to become like legendary pseudo-religious figures, right? We're seeing the development of Himmel from like a guy people knew into this hero myth where like they shave off the fact that he didn't actually pull the hero's sword out of that cave.
Yeah.
And they're like,
that's a good episode too.
That is absolutely peak. So she's seen the development of like people she knows personally who she remembers as like just people, right? And I think she probably has a perspective of like, there was probably a very powerful magical person who created the scriptures at some point in the past. And, maybe they even transcended their physical form and became the goddess or something, right? But like, I don't know if she necessarily buys into it because of that like very long perspective on how fact becomes myth, becomes legend, and how she's seen that so many times throughout her life. And I don't know, to me, that's a really interesting factor. And I really enjoy whenever she comes up against those sort of religious questions and is like, when she is forced to like consider her own worldview, but also when she comes up with like compelling defenses for it. And yeah, I find those philosophical conversations really fascinating.
Talking about philosophical conversations, I know where we're going next.
Which is?
Oh, you want to jump to demons?
Are demons evil?
Are demons evil?
Because that is the wonderful philosophical question that I love the show for having, because normally you can't have that conversation generally because there's always such a gray area, and so many times you'll have like there are a lot of narratives that are, hey, stereotypically, this race, this type of person, this being is evil and irredeemable, but there's always at least one that's not, or is a little bit more, or can have like that heel turn. So it's like, Saiyans are absolutely evil. But Vegeta, though, he can turn it around.
Well, no. So I think this is like the least interesting philosophical question of the show, and it's really frustrating to me that this has gotten overblown, because textually speaking, the demons are beasts.
Yes.
Textually speaking, they turn into, magical fluff when they die.
Yeah.
Therefore, and their biology and evolution is tracked such that they are not much different than beasts. But again, you could say pigs have IQ of 50 and dolphins have a higher IQ than most of my friends. There's a
yeah.
I understand that there is like a scale here, but textually in the world of Frieren, demons are just evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they do things that make you think otherwise is interesting. That's the interesting part, right? Of like, what is humanity if this you can think of it, is AI human because it says "Daddy, please," right? Mm-hmm. In whatever tone you want, Geoff.
We are actually hitting a point where we do have inhuman creatures that like do drag people into like horrendous situations. There was that kid who killed himself because he thought Daenerys Targaryen, the AI, loved him and wanted him to kill himself, right? And I mean, that's not an intentional thing that AI is doing yet. But, there is something existentially terrifying about the concept of a monster, an inhuman other that preys on us by playing to our emotions.
By being our friend.
That is the interesting philosophical bit. What is not interesting is, can a creature be purely evil? Because the problem is a lot of people are coming at Frieren from the perspective of it is telling that from an literary perspective that this class of creatures, this race of creatures, is pure evil because it harkens back to really ugly perspectives in human history where this same kind of criticism was levied across racial groups or ethnic groups of people, right? The thing is, it's very clear to me that is not an allegory in this space for that.
Absolutely,
now,
yeah.
There's lots of good reading out there about situations in fantasy where that's not the case. And I'd say in most cases in fantasy works, fantasy races are used as a proxy for human races in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
It's just not the case.
Even in Tolkien.
Yeah.
Even
Tolkien,
in Tolkien.
yeah.
There's
absolutely.
Yeah,
but
the
orcs are also a little interesting because they're literally just corrupted elves and not corrupted like one drop of blood corrupted. Like there's the racial politics of Tolkien are a little more interesting. The goblins are the more fraught thing than orcs in Tolkien, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the goblins, dwarves
hobbits,
are a little
people
thorny.
from the north.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, orcs. Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff in Tolkien, and there's a lot of that stuff in a lot of the fantasy that Frieren is drawing on, and maybe some of those elements end up being reflected back in the text to a certain extent. But like, I think what Frieren is doing with the demons that is actually interesting, like the idea of an inherently evil race or an inherently evil group of people that just exist to be bad guys in a story is really boring.
Yeah.
But where I do think that Frieren actually does interesting stuff with the demons is in exploring the nature of evil, right? What is it that makes somebody evil, right? And it's, like certain people who latch on to Frieren as like, oh, she's just like me because she hates another race unconditionally. They kind of stop at the point where what makes demons evil is they fundamentally don't believe in truth or meaning of words and just use them as weapons to manipulate other people. They have no sense of empathy, no ability to build community, and they value power above all else and have like this rigid idea that strength is everything, and that the strong must dominate and the weak must submit.
Geoff, we're talking about anime, not large language models.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, one of the things that I liked about them was that a good chunk of the time, especially once we hit the demon arc and before then, when demons are quote unquote acting themselves, like not when they're putting on an act for other humans or everything, they're played very flat, very emotionless, very Rei Ayanami. But also, the show very much likes to be like, hey, here's Aura. She is prideful as heck. She can get emotional in under the right circumstances where it is very clearly not an act. One of my favorite, one of pretty much everybody's favorite moments of Aura is after Frieren's just like, no, bye, kill yourself. And the expressions that are given to Aura in that moment when she realizes what she is about to do is perfect. Because it is not, it goes slightly counter to what they've shown us about demons and how emotionless they can be. And that she just is not that.
That's an important distinction. They're not emotionless.
Yes.
They are devoid of empathy. They feel things for themselves. They don't feel things for anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, not anybody else, because they don't have a sense of others. Anything else is really, like, I hate to quibble, but like that is kind of the point, right? Like there's no other.
There is them, and there are the stronger things that can threaten their existence that they must therefore show subservience to, and there are the weaker things that they can play with however they feel like.
Yeah.
And what the other kind of interesting thing about them as villains as they're developed is, like, we see ones who represent like Aura is kind of an embodiment of sadism and dominance, just for the sake of dominance, kind of. Then in other demons, we see curiosity. The guy who invented Zoltrak, he kind of just seemed like he wanted to blow shit up and see how bad he could blow shit up, right? And he was just like, he's kind of a little bit of a Saiyan almost, where he's just like looking for fights. And trying to test his,
like, he takes the whole demon thing of like trying to be stronger to a slightly different level, because I feel like he is a character who, when faced with someone who is stronger than him, doesn't immediately jump to the subservience like we've seen other demons do within their culture. Instead, he's like, no, I'm gonna win, and because he's so used to actually doing that. Yeah.
I love Lugner's the demon during the first demon arc. His obsession with like hating geniuses and loving the thrill of slowly developing your skills, getting better over time, mastering skills instead of just being naturally gifted. And I think that's such an interesting perspective for, again, something that is partway beast, partway like not quite a sentient. Like there's a, say what you want about sentience. Like the interesting place where demons fall in sentience is best captured by his like single-minded obsession with becoming better, self-improvement. I thought that was so telling for what demons can be too.
Yeah, and they can be like legitimately interesting characters. And I think that Frieren does a good job at several points of like creating like, they're not interesting villains. That's the thing, right? They have very flat motivations.
Yeah, the interesting thing is how the characters interact with them far more.
Yes.
So like Frieren and Drat in the cell, peak. Love that scene so much. And then how Lugner and Fern interact and their whole battle, which is also peak, but from an animation perspective, and just Fern being a badass in general is just, I love watching.
Very satisfying, yeah. I mean, both of the kids, when they get their badass moments, like, oh, fuck. That first episode where Stark's like, man, I don't know about this dragon. I don't know if I can fight this dragon. And then he's like, I guess I'll fight the dragon. Dragon's already dead. What the fuck? Did I do that?
That's a good moment.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, yeah, I cut an entire cliff in half, but that's a dragon, you know, it's just, yeah, the development of the kids is really good. And I kind of I like that they're both really powerful. I like that they're both arguably as powerful as Frieren already in their own kind of area of expertise, right? You know, the revelation at the very end of the series that Fern can fucking kill Frieren with an assist from Frieren.
Well, actually, the one matchup that I think is very interesting, because I don't feel like even while watching it or reading it, you really know what's going on. Going to that arc, so everybody has a clone because we're in the clone dungeon. There is a matchup that is not really shown, which is the Fern clone versus Method. And we don't see that fight. What we see is we get a shot of Method, injured as heck, and then the clone of Fern dissipating, but it is not made clear, did she defeat the Fern clone, or did the Fern clone just dissipate once the final boss of the dungeon was defeated? They kind of allude to both. It's a Schrodinger's box. Both of them could have happened, and we're not entirely sure which. And just a little alludement that, yeah, no, Method could potentially wipe the floor of Frieren, or not Frieren, Fern, which I love, because it's like Method is a great character, but also one that is presented as a background character for a lot of that arc.
The really interesting thing, and I think that you could kind of like Fern has the end of the exam arc specifically hints that Fern has the potential to be the greatest mage to ever live. That's a seed that's been dangled along
for a long time.
Also, there is a possibility that that Stark could be the hero. Because Stark has shown a level of, the hero who's supposed to pull that sword out. And I think that possibly if he had tried that in the cave, he might have pulled it out. Because, Stark's strength is insane.
Going back to what we were saying about how characters from Frieren's party relate to the hero's party, I do see a world where the narrative goes, yeah, by the way, Stark is Himmel and Fern is Frieren. Because not only have they obviously been hyping up the romance between Stark and Fern and that whole side of their relationship, but no, I do agree with you that I can see a world in where where Stark is more than just the Eisen representative of the new party, but also the Himmel, in the same way that Fern is the Heiter representation as well as the Frieren representation in the new party.
Kind of they're both kind of a synthesis, right, of those two influences.
And I love that. I like that it's more than just a one-on-one. It's the Fern is more than just the magic user of this new party, because Frieren's also a magic user. Stark is more than just the Eisen of this party. I like that a lot.
I think if they develop Eisen more in the future and you establish the idea that Eisen and Himmel were sparring buddies to a certain extent, that alone could plant the seed of Stark.
Well, I'm waiting for that to come in once we get a more stronger Stark arc, because Stark was very backburnered throughout the Mage Exam arc, because the Mage Exam was mostly Fern and then further building with Frieren because she's the main character. But Stark did not have a lot of development in the Mage Exam arc, and I'm waiting for him to get his equivalency arc. And I feel like we're going to get a lot more Eisen at that time.
Can we talk about how crazy it is that Frieren is the main character? That is such a hard main character to make work.
Yeah.
And even during the Mage arc, which is definitely a Fern arc, there's never a moment that Frieren doesn't feel like the main character, and not in a, Jay Gatsby kind of way.
Well, I mean, we still follow her. That's the thing. Because when you're doing the bird section of the exam arc, Frieren is still the POV, and Fern is off in her own party. She's still like technically the main character. Like, I mean, not technically, but she's like narratively the important part of this arc.
They're deuteragonists of the arc.
Yes.
And coming back to solo leveling, Frieren is kind of like a perfect counterpoint to like how you can have an insanely overpowered, emotionally distant character who is like pulling an assist and getting other characters out of trouble on a regular basis, who doesn't just negate all of the problems that they fight, who's interesting in her own right and has like an interesting arc to go through that like reflects in those characters.
I mean, the counterpoint to that argument is that within this exam arc, the bird section kind of proves that Frieren is better than everybody because she just wipes out Suri's force field. But then the only thing that can stop her from just wrongful stopping through everything is a clone of herself.
Well, no, that's not. So one, she does deconstruct the barrier, but like that's after 2 whole days in there where she's been kind of working on that on the back foot nonstop. And like in the same arc, it's not just a clone of her is the only thing that can stop her. It's like established she's got like really fundamental problems with how she casts spells.
Because the fact that they show us that, by the way, Fern and her party got their bird super quick, and like Frieren didn't just immediately just yoink bird because she doesn't have that level of power. It's almost like
it's not even about power. It's about like naivety and like kind of Frieren's got her own personal problems that are getting in the way of her magical abilities.
Yeah. She's not like so. She is an overpowered character, but she's not. It's almost like she's a gigantic cannon, and she's not good at like surgical work. She can't just. Go ahead.
I was just on the soul leveling point. Like, it's just such a funny thing to compare the two shows and to, watch them back to back for this purpose. And we talk about the mage arc, and I love every single character so much. Yes. Every single character gets actual development. Every character has an arc. The end,
which I didn't expect because I thought that like we were just gonna see them for a little bit, and the ones that were being planned to show up after this arc, we'd get more development of them. So like I watched it, I'm like, oh, Ubel's gonna be a long-term character.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ubel they show her before she even gets to town, so like that's really obvious. And what's his face with the puffy jacket?
Werbel.
Werbel. And not Denzel. It's not Denzel. Denkin. Fuck. I just watched it. I'm so bad with names. But yeah, like I
have them all in front of me. I'm cheating.
The main guys in every party, you kind of expect. Okay, like here's but like Laufen or Laufrey or Laufen. Yeah, Laufen. She's kind of like interesting, and then the guy who runs the magic shop, who's part of Denkin's party,
I think it's Richter.
Yeah,
I think Richter's
Richter. Yeah, they're all like interesting and on their own journeys that like complement each other and complement the main characters. Like it's a really brilliant move to split up Fern and Frieren, and kind of make Fern the Frieren of her own group, and like that as a show of her development, but also it you do get kind of parallels there with Werbel is kind of like a dark Stark, which makes it so great that they clash him and Fern, but then pairing her up with Ubel, who's like obviously being set up to be a villain. Or at least like some kind of like major antagonistic rival at some point in the future.
I hope not.
Brilliant.
But maybe that's because I like her character so much. Like I don't mind her if she turns into a villain. If she becomes a villain, I would like her to be a Vegeta villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think of Vegeta for sure, but she's also like a serial killer. Like the first thing they establish is she is the kind of person who like burns anthills for fun, except instead of anthills, it's like bandits. And like, nobody's gonna fucking get mad at you for killing a bunch of bandits, but also like, the elf priest.
Craft?
Craft. Yeah, I should remember that. Craft dinner. Now I'll remember it. Anyway, Craft.
For American viewers, a Kraft dinner is known as macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, so Craft, I have trouble remembering that one because my brain just, Craft is Kraft Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree. That is a little hard, but... Yeah.
But like Craft is like, I had to like throw myself in front of those guys and like try to fight them, which I'm not super comfortable with, just because I didn't want to see you do that to more bodies. Like, she's crazy, and they make no anything about her being like crazy and dangerous. Her interaction with Siri is just like, yeah, you pass, and she's like, well, we didn't say anything.
You don't need to. Yeah.
Come on.
God, I loved all those evaluations so much. Every single one of them is like 10 out of 10, just delightful. But like, you're talking about this. Do you know how many characters in anime we've seen that are more or less that archetype, right? The like crazy, like the Ubel character, right? That like...
It's Ubel. That's
excuse me.
Important.
Thank you. That Ubel archetype of like the kind of crazy one who's actually a murderous whatever, but they're kind of on the okay side for now, at least. We see this in anime plenty, but this feels fresh enough. This feels different. I think she feels like her own character, even though she's such a clearly defined archetype, which is my larger point about the mage arc, which is I would have been happy watching an anime about any party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Like any group of characters, I would have been like, give me 12 episodes of that. I will be a happy boy. I will like be obsessed.
Well, like with Ubel specifically, the reason why I like her, and to your point of how like fresh she kind of feels, is that she gives off pretty much everything from a traditional yandere archetype, but without the obsessive romance aspect to it. It's just like, no, she has those traits, but it's not attached to any other character necessarily. Like they're occasionally hinting at like a relationship between her and Land, but also since Land is just completely not interested at all, it's very funny to see.
So that's not even a relationship hint. That's she's kind of a much better execution on what Hiroaka tried to do with Toga. Where, she has the ability to deconstruct somebody, literally take their powers and use them as her own, if she can understand them. But, like, instead of being, like, kind of a very confusing message about love and blah, blah, that, like, goes back and forth and, like, oh, she's obsessive, but then she's, like, a little bit broken, and it's, like, I love Horikoshi, love Hiroaka, but you can kind of... pathology was not exactly the top priority there, right? And the pathology was never like purely understood. Whereas with Ubel, it's like she is, kind of a demon almost, just dissecting people. But she dissects people physically, but then she also dissects them emotionally, right? And, Wirbel is a very, very simple person to do that with. But, like, with Land,
still satisfying.
He's got a really cool power. And she wants that. And she's just, like, trying to understand him. And it's such a great reveal in his interview with Siri, where it's like,
no, she knows.
Was not even close. The whole fucking time, she was not even close. When she thought, oh yeah, he's gonna come to save me, and this tells me something about him because he's willing to like put himself on the line when I'm in danger. No,
he never did.
No, he never even showed up.
Sipping tea.
His clone made a clone.
It shouldn't be as good as it is. So here's the thing about Frieren, and I want to lead this into the end of the conversation because
we're going to wrap this up.
Mm.
The first couple episodes are among the most satisfying slice of life, meditation on grief, what have you, that I've ever seen in any medium, let alone anime.
Yeah.
Then we get into basically an adventure fantasy with elements of that still incorporated. And it's, again, top of class, one of the just a great world, great characters to live in. Every episode poignant. Like, I can't tell you how many times I cried throughout the first 12 episodes of the show, right? It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. And even when I didn't cry, I had the biggest smile on my face humanly possible.
Yeah.
Then we get into a battle tournament arc, basically, and it still manages to be, again, one of the most satisfying, most fleshed out, most perfect 12-episode tournament arcs that I've ever seen. Because, again, as mentioned before, every character is great. Every moment, every character beat is powerful. And it's still fun and insightful and meaningful and has those like wisps of depth and backstory throughout.
And you also can't like discount the fact that the action whips ass. Every fight's insane.
Dude, like I saw someone, I was recently looking at like a Sakamoto Days side by side of the manga versus the anime. And it's like, yes, I see. They used this is just a by the books adaptation of the manga. This is why people are criticizing it. Like, there's no reason to watch that anime if you've already read the manga. If you've already read the Frieren manga and you watch the anime, you just get to feel every feeling you felt taken to a whole new level. It is an absurd, like the manga is great. I haven't read too much of it, but everything I've read has a lot of those same, like I see why it's very powerful source material, but the anime is such an elevation. The anime is such an elevation of that I can't handle how good it is.
Shout outs to the animators at Madhouse. Shout out to Evan Call for the music.
Oh my God. Thank you, Evan. Yeah. According to our very rough list we put together a couple months ago, while, imbibing and not necessarily keeping it all too seriously.
Yeah.
Tristan had Frieren at number 1 on his list. Geoff had it as a top 30 title, and I had it at rank 50.
After like sitting down for this, watch it for this. I think at least top 20. I think top 20. Here's the thing, right?
I realize that my taste is not like we're gonna have lots of fights later, but I realize that my taste is very different than your two.
It hits a lot of stuff for me. Like Anohana is one of my all-time favorite anime, right? And it made me cry as much as Anohana in 12 episodes. But
Anohana did it in 1.
Yeah, Anohana.
I could make you cry now with Anohana if I played something over the speakers right now, and you know it.
Do not play that song. Do not talk about hide and seek to me. But Frieren is really good at tugging at the heartstrings, and it's also like an A-class action series. I would say that it is a better, more hype shonen battle series than Solo Leveling, than My Hero Academia,
than Full Metal,
on par with Full Metal. Maybe slightly behind, because I have not seen anything. I have not seen anything battle wise that can touch Al versus Pride. I have not seen anything that can touch that, and that's like top 3 for me. But it's definitely up there.
Miles, you said 50.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still 50?
No.
Okay. Where is it now?
So I was looking at my list and I had ReZero in the top 20.
Okay.
Right?
I wouldn't change that.
Well, no. The thing is, Frieren belongs pretty close to ReZero for me.
Okay.
So they do very different things. I'm not trying to compare them.
I'm not trying to compare the two.
I saw ReZero and I'm like, do I really like ReZero meaningfully more than Frieren? And I'm like, honestly, there's a big part of me that likes Frieren more. It doesn't mean as much to me personally. I have a lot of personal attachments to ReZero that are, a little. It digs deeper inside the well of my heart, or what have you. Mm-hmm. But certainly, I had Yakitate Japan at number 25, and Frieren's definitely a better
above Yakitate.
Well, barely. I think Yakitate Japan has the best battle arc in all of. No, I'm kidding. Yes, Frieren's better than Yakitate Japan. Though I do love all of the battle arcs in Yakitate.
If we're talking about like the mage arc is pretty good for like explaining the magic system and how it relates to characters and stuff. But if we're talking about pure hype, it's got nothing on.
You're right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And for the listeners at home, deal with it.
if you're on Spotify, you're just gonna have to guess what I just did. I wiggled my hands around a lot. That's the described video.
How I would say this is the only regret I have as far as this is having this be our first episode, because I feel like starting with my number one is very hard for me to explain, because it's like I have nothing yet to compare it to as far as like what we've talked about on this podcast. Like if we revisited Frieren like after 100 episodes or so, I would be able to point to, here are all the other things I really like, and here's why I like Frieren more than all of it. I have a hard time doing that now because I don't want to go into another like 3 hours of why I love Frieren. So that's like the only reason I'm.
Well, I don't even think that's all that helpful.
We can use our episode 0 benchmark of Vampire Hunter D.
You want me to explain why I like Frieren more than Vampire Hunter D?
No, I don't. But that, which is my point, which is like, I don't think comparing this title to Yakitate Japan or ReZero is all that helpful. But saying, is this one of the best TV anime experiences out there? Absolutely.
Yes.
Do I agree with the both of you that it deserves to be in the top 20 for TV anime? I'm not going to really fight y'all too hard on that, because I think about Frieren and I think more revisits to it are only going to make me grow fonder of it. And I think that all of its, the things people consider flaws are actually quiet strengths.
I mean, that is kind of the thing when it comes to this list that we are building, is I'm okay with not putting everything solidly in stone on any given episode. I do feel like even if we put Frieren at number 1 right now, which is where I would put it, but for like our overall list, I know that once we get into this more, once we talk about more things, once we revisit other things, things can move around and change. And like, until we have like closer to 100 episodes of this podcast, I don't think we're going to need to solidify too much.
I mean, I think it's going to be past that, because there's going to be episodes where we're like, I don't think this is making the list. And, you know,
or we can be like, this might, but then later on it'll have to get kicked off because we find something that's better that's just the nature of this, how this journey of ours, this quest of ours is going to be.
And I like, for me, I think top 20, top 25 is a good ballpark for it, because in terms of just raw production values coupled with a really solid story, it's definitely like up there in terms of just sheer excellence of production.
Yeah.
But, you know, Miles, what you were saying about ReZero, for example, I also think that ReZero digs a little deeper into stuff that hits personally for me. And I think another point of comparison that makes sense with Solo Leveling is that Frieren is so successful because it reaches broad with the emotions it's hitting on. It's hitting on a much deeper part of the broader human experience than Solo Leveling ever touches, but it is hitting on themes of mortality and connection that everybody can relate to on some level. And it's definitely a very personal story, but it's also one that I think it does hit really wide. And to me, the stuff that is my all-time favorites is the stuff that gets like really personal and very like makes a very, very distinctive statement that only the artist who made it could have made, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think Miles kind of resonates with me because our top ones are both those very specific kind of anime, I think.
I mean, all of our tops are usually our tops because they mean something to us.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, and I'm sure Frieren like speaks to you.
Like Frieren, I feel like is one of the easier ones that I'm going to have in order to try and explain and show you guys, no, this belongs on the list. I am sure there is going to be something else like within my top 10 that I'm going to have a very hard time convincing you to that needs to be on this list. I know that it's going to happen. And I feel like it's going to happen reverse as well. I'm sure Geoff is going to be like, no, we need to put this on the list. And I'm going to be like, no, we don't. We really don't.
100 girlfriends who really, 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 really,
not on the
really
list.
love you.
I don't. How is that in your top 10? I'm spoiling that. How is that in your top 10?
Because it's peak. Because there has never been a harem or harem in the history of harems.
Save it for its episode. And
Tenchi Muyo?
and
Tenchi Muyo doesn't come close.
And on that, thank you for watching. This is Big Quest for the Best with Tristan, Miles, and Geoff.
Well, we hope to see you at our next Quest Hub.
On to the job board.
On the job board.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.